So, as I said earlier, I am Amanda Sticklebauer, and tonight we are going to dive deeply into the role of state government during the COVID-19 pandemic. And for those of you who have no idea like what this curriculum is all about, this is new curriculum added to the Understanding Fiscal Responsibility curriculum that was a partnership between our National Council on Economic Education and their website, econedlink.org, and the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. They are really passionate about teaching our youngsters about fiscal responsibility and the role that government plays in the economy. So when they started to roll this out, I really latched onto it because obviously if this pandemic has taught us one thing is that economics and personal finance, this is everywhere. And this is certainly something that students can see the impact no matter what age and grade level they're in. So this curriculum is really more of a high school based curriculum, but you can certainly think of modifications to use it based on your grade level, or maybe you're just here to learn tonight. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys are joining in on the Nearpod. If that's something that you want to do. Before I get started, I'm going to post the code and the link in the chat box one more time for you. And just for those of you who are with me, can y'all give me like a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Nearpod and then the code in this. Okay, cool. Very good. I am usually a Google Meet lady. Okay, very good. I'm usually a Google Meet lady. I use Zoom a lot, but not as often as I use my Google Meet. So y'all, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So I love to give my participants an agenda for the night. So we're going to dive in with some introductions to this curriculum, and then we're going to get interactive pretty quickly. So if you're on the Nearpod, feel free to chime in on the Nearpod, and I'll show you some features with the polling device. If you are not, you're also welcome to type your responses in the chat. We'll dive into some collaboration boards. There'll be a few of those tonight so you guys can share your thoughts. And collaboration boards, if you haven't heard me talk about these before, I really love these because I believe that they give our students a voice, especially students who may not be comfortable just using their literal voice inside of a normal classroom. So I'm a huge fan of these. We'll, of course, investigate some political cartoons tonight, and we've tried to keep it a little tame in our polarizing atmosphere that we have, but I hope that you guys will enjoy these. And I'll give you a little tiny bit of content related to economic indicators and how economists use cost-benefit analysis in this situation, and certainly how government officials use cost-benefit analysis when making these important decisions. Tonight, we'll also do a breakout activity, so be ready to chat with your fellow friends in econ and personal finance land as we discuss states' responses, how responsive and how effective their responses were to this pandemic. And then the activity that you guys are going to do tonight relates to emojis. So I'm going out on a limb with this one, but it's an emoji activity that I think can be applied to any lesson that you teach, regardless of if you teach this actual lesson or not. And then we'll take some time to share out from our groups, wrap it all up with some notices and wonders, and then we'll be on our merry way. Just so that you guys know, not to overburden you, but tonight I'll send out 2 short evaluations for you guys. And just so you know, that's not a mistake. One of them is a Survey Monkey, and that is from our funder. And then the other one is our typical evaluation, and that's how we track who's here and who we need to pay. So that's your ticket. So we're going to start tonight with a little poll, and this is something that I'll hide our student names so that this can be an anonymous poll. For those of you who are in the Nearpod, the question is, do you approve of South Carolina's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic? And this can be something that you guys discuss in class. If you are in the Zoom, you're welcome to put your answer in the chat box if you feel comfortable. Okay, so we have lots of no's in the chat box. We have a variety of yeses and no's in the poll. So one of the cool things I like about these polls is that you can share them with your students. So if you are actually on a Nearpod, you guys can see that 71.5% said somewhat. 21% or 20% said absolutely, and nobody really said not at all. Okay, so we're kind of somewhere really in the middle. So the reason I ask you guys that really relates to the heart of this lesson. And I want you guys to really start thinking about, what do you think the role of government in the economy is? So our big, like, overarching question to begin to get us thinking, I like to call these our grapples. What is the proper role of government in the economy? And maybe even you can, say, for the state government as well. So if you're in the Nearpod, make sure that you're on your Nearpod, that you can click in the box and share your thoughts. And then those of you who are not joined in, you are welcome to type your responses in the chat, and I'm happy to read those. So we'll take about a minute or so for you guys to get your responses in, and then we'll share out. So do we think that the government, very similar to Adam Smith's beliefs, should generally stay out with very little interference? Do we believe in a more hands-on approach? I have a lot of responses coming in now, and we have some in the chat. So Denise says, taxes and federal programs to protect its citizens from wild fluctuations in prices, so price stability, from Cynthia. And then we have several coming in on the collaboration board. You guys can see that we have stars for people's names, and I can show you guys easily like how you can change that. You can choose to show people's names as well. Maybe. Here we go. So you can choose to show people's names as well on here. So Vicki says, to enact legislation that fosters a strong economy, to protect our country and economy, control inflation, collect taxes, and use taxes responsibly. I see somebody's already hearted that one. Very cool. Jennifer says, to make rules and regulations and make sure that they're being followed to promote economic growth. Juliana, taxes and services, providing necessary assistance, protect people and make our state and country strong. So lots of good responses, but they all kind of boil down to, how do we use our taxpayer dollars? How do we protect the economy from these wild fluctuations? We saw a lot of those wild fluctuations during this pandemic. And so this is an important point to kind of capitalize on with your students. And so those are really important things that we'll continue to dive into tonight. You guys certainly have the right ideas. So we're going to dive into the purpose and some of the background for this lesson. So in this economics lesson, we want for our students and our teachers as their guides to research some of the actions taken by various state governments and evaluate their effectiveness in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a lesson that I wrote for this project, And when I was thinking about writing this lesson, I knew that I wanted it to be very student centered, and I wanted it to involve some research. I wanted students to evaluate data and form their own conclusions and do something authentic, an authentic task with it. So really, that's kind of a little background on how this lesson evolved. In the beginning, our leaders said, okay, we want something based on state government response. And I said, well, that's really interesting because, you know, in South Carolina, as you guys know, we've had some interesting takes on things. And it's been very, very interesting to watch how other state governments have responded and how those responses have impacted their recovery as well. So we are going to skip over just a couple of these political cartoons and kind of roll into some of the essential questions and the essential dilemmas. And then we'll pick back up with some of the other cartoons that are a little bit more recent. So what is the role of state government in emergency situations like a pandemic? I really want us to be thinking about whether the role of government should expand temporarily in times of emergency. Should they always kind of be on kilter and remain the same? Does it depend? If you're an economist at heart, we know that the best answer an economist can say is it depends, because there's a lot of gray area. So what is the role of our government, both state and national, when emergency situations arise? So I'm going to ask you guys this on the collaboration board. As you guys are thinking about this, think about this from a state level. So what do we feel is the role of state government when emergency situations arise, like this pandemic? And you can also think about, as you're, you know, kind of brainstorming, if we suddenly get another surge. I'm really praying that doesn't happen. But if we get another surge, or these variants really kind of spike out of control, what would the role of the state government, the proper role of state government, be? And again, you're welcome to put these in the chat, and you're also welcome to put your thoughts on the collaboration board as well. So I have some responses: to keep us safe. And I think, like, we could really talk for a really long time about what we mean by safe, right? The role of state governments to act in the best interest of our citizens, the state citizens. This may be different from national. Cynthia, that's a really good point. To assist as needed, from Anna. To protect the rights of citizens, Amy. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the big pieces of friction, I think, a lot of times is where are we giving up freedoms? Is it necessary to? So yeah. To make citizens are informed and protected. That has certainly been a common theme throughout the course of this past year. I think we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of shutting everything down. Okay, so I'm trying to move my chat box so I can see responses. To divert resources from areas of abundance to need, Jeremy. All right, I hear you. To make sure we still run as a nation, to make sure that citizens are informed and protected, safety and welfare of citizens. Yeah. So to protect our rights and to protect our safety. And there's like kind of an intricate balance between those, right? To assess and address the immediate needs of the state. Absolutely. Just like when we think about how our state responds to hurricane preparedness, right? This is similar, but a very novel situation. So if you guys have looked at some of these understanding fiscal responsibility lessons before from Econ EdLink, they all really begin with an essential dilemma, which is what educators refer to most of the time as an essential question. So here, when we look at our essential dilemma for this lesson, we're looking to answer by the end: can state government's responses to the COVID-19 pandemic prioritize the health and safety of citizens while also focusing on economic stability? So a lot of the themes that you guys put in the chat And on the Nearpod collaboration board, a lot of those themes are kind of playing themselves out through this essential dilemma. Safety was a very common theme that you guys listed. Freedom, health really, of course, is related to safety. And then the role of governments to ensure economic stability and ensure we don't have these wild swings in our markets and our economy. So the learning targets for this lesson, and really the ones that we'll try to zone in on tonight, are analyze economic data and policy actions by state governments during the COVID-19 pandemic. I will give you guys an exemplar that I created from South Carolina using data from South Carolina. So no one tonight gets to do South Carolina, but we will take a look at some other states from around the country. And then evaluate the extent to which state governments' policies related to the COVID-19 pandemic prioritize the health and safety of citizens while also focusing on economic recovery. And you can see how these learning targets tie into that essential dilemma as well. So we have a couple of cartoons that we'll kind of skip over, but I do want to look at this next one because I think it's a little less political. So as you guys look at this political cartoon, I would encourage you guys, if there's someone who wants to unmute themselves and just talk about what the main idea of this political cartoon is, what this illustrator is trying to convey. I'd love to hear someone else's voice.
I think a big thing about this one is washing your hands is just such an easy thing to do, and so many people don't even think about it. And so I know that during wartime, this image brought everyone together, and it made them feel like there was something they could do to promote or to help the war effort. And so by them putting wash your hands at the bottom, it's like saying, okay, everybody needs to come together. Everybody needs to do this one simple thing, and it'll make everything better for everybody.
Jennifer, that's a great analysis. And thank you for sharing in front of a whole bunch of people you probably don't know. And I couldn't have said it better myself. I really love how you drew in the historic significance of Uncle Sam here. And really, it's just simple, right? Wash your hands. We could also caption this a couple of other things. So if we were to create another caption for this, what else might Uncle Sam be saying here? Anyone?
He might could say, I want you to go get a vaccine.
Absolutely, Sherry. Very good.
Anyone else? I want you to not only wash your hands for yourself, but you're washing your hands for your state and your country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Joyce. Okay. And I have some people who are kind of chiming in over here as well. I want you to socially distance, right? I want you to wear a mask. All of those things could have been, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I took the words out of your mouth, but yeah, absolutely. These are great. All right, so here's one that's a little bit deeper. That little history nut in me kind of really enjoyed this one, and then my girls also love to play with Legos. So same thing. What's going on here? What is the point that the illustrator's trying to make, and maybe even like why these Legos?
Well, I think that because the Statue of Liberty is supposed to be a symbol of freedom for the United States, the illustrator here is saying, don't wear a mask, and that's my freedom not to do so.
Absolutely, Joyce. Very good. All right, so we have this traditional symbol of freedom, as she stated. And then what do we have on the other side? Anyone else want to chime in with what else is going on the other side? What is this symbolic of?
He's on another island.
Erica, yeah, he's on another island. Does anybody want to take a little gander at like what country this might represent, who this might be?
Is this China?
It-
Like
it
the
looks
Huns?
from Tibet or something.
Yeah.
Mongolia.
Okay, so these look like terracotta warriors to me.
Okay.
China. You guys remember those?
He's got a bow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a bow, but he also is wearing a mask, right? So the Statue of Liberty is really kind of taunting this terracotta warrior guy, symbolic of China. That, you know, over here in America, we have freedoms, and we have the freedom to not wear a mask. And you're kind of stuck over here wearing a mask and giving up your freedoms. So this was certainly one of the big arguments and still continues to be during this pandemic as we kind of loosen the restrictions on masks. I know in my little city of Lexington, we just loosened our mask restriction as well. And I like this one too. I thought this was kind of funny, and I love New Orleans. So I miss the old New Orleans masks. Man, me too. Take it back to Mardi Gras. Maybe next year. All right, so question for you guys. And this is another little Nearpod activity, and you can write on this. So in econ, I love this specific feature of Nearpod. Is called Draw It. And it allows me to graph with my students. Most of my students are still virtual. So it's really important that I am able to see their work. But I just wanted to introduce this to y'all today as a little alternative, perhaps, to the collaboration board. So on yours, if you will draw me something, it can be a drawing or it can be words. How do we know if the economy is healthy? Okay, so when we talk about the role of government being to keep the economy healthy or stable, what does that mean? And what measures would we look at to determine if the economy is healthy or not? So again, those of you who want to participate in the chat box, feel free. Desiree, I also like what I just noticed in the chat box, that you said that you have a choice, but your choice is, do you have consequences? Absolutely. Rolling up your sleeves, doing your part, Vicki. I completely agree. So I will, for those of you who were not on the Nearpod, I'll take just a little time and share y'all what I can see. So the students can write in. We have unemployment, GDP. Those are two of the big economic indicators, two of the most important economic indicators. Very good. I know some of you are still kind of figuring this out. And of course, it does not do justice to our handwriting. People are working and shopping. Tamika, that's really important. They were talking on NPR last week about rebound shopping as a result of this. Inflation, Juliana, absolutely. We want our inflation level to remain around 2%. It's a pretty normal rate. So you guys kind of get the point. So when we look at economic indicators, generally, and I know our South Carolina standards look at the importance of those big three: GDP, unemployment, and gross domestic product, and growth of gross domestic product. But we also have to think about consumer confidence, as Jeremy submitted. And one that economists are really looking at now is income inequality. And that's not something your textbook is going to teach you, but just another important reason to continue to learn. And then I think I have a couple of you who said a couple of things. Real GDP and employment levels, absolutely. People are being able to shop for groceries. Yeah, Marilyn, that's absolutely right. Fun times, guys. Okay, so as we evaluate state government's responses to this pandemic, we're going to look through the lens of some different data points tonight. There is a website that I'll share with you guys that constantly tracks and assigns an openness score for each state. And they compile together many different indicators like mask mandates, school reopenings, and things like that. So we're going to collectively look at some of that data tonight. So we'll look at their openness score. I'll give you guys an example of that. Whether or not the state issued a mask requirement or if it was based on local government mandates, the reopening status of schools. I know that in our district, we are set to go back 4.5 days a week, March the 22nd, and I know that we're one of the later ones. Then some unemployment rate comparisons. March, when the pandemic really kind of first struck and things shut down, April 2020, and then looking at the unemployment rate in the present. Yeah, price of oil is a good one. I see Vicki says y'all been face-to-face since August. Okay, and then there are a couple of other statistics that we're going to look at. The decline in state revenues, which is a statistic that I have compiled for you in this lesson. The percentage change in real gross domestic product by state. Yes, GDP is measured by state. It's kind of a pretty cool statistic to look at. And then where the COVID cases in the states are trending. Hopefully we'll find some positive results in the states that we have selected for tonight, but you never know. So as economists, when we look at whether or not we should open or not, whether or not we should extend a mask requirement, the economics behind this is very simple. It's cost-benefit analysis. So I like to explain this to my students as weighing the pros and cons. And cons can be seen and unseen factors. Seen being what we call in economics like our explicit costs, things that you can really put a dollar value on and really foresee happening. And then unseen factors like our opportunity costs, our implicit costs, things that normal people don't put a dollar value on, but we do have to consider lost opportunities when we make a decision as well. So as state governments were making decisions on how to reopen, to what extent to reopen, there were some costs that they had to consider. Would it lead to additional deaths and hospitalizations? Did they have enough beds in the hospital? Cost of reopening may be loss of potential income or tax money if they were not able to collect on it. Risk of continued outbreaks and maybe closures again, which would obviously be terrible. I know that one of the things that we still feel like is not too terrible around here is traffic, right? That's been one of kind of the blessings in disguise. Not as many people are on the road. And then of course there are the politics behind reopening as well, right? We won't dive too much into those. Those are things that we can talk about in our own homes, but we know that those factors are at play as well. And then state governments also have to weigh those costs with the benefits of reopening. So states like South Carolina, for example, that reopened sooner experienced drastic reductions in unemployment. So that's important, putting people to work and making sure that they have groceries. That's important. The increase in tax revenue when people return back to work so we can pay for these programs. Maybe there is not a need or maybe there's a reduced need for a future stimulus. And we have to certainly consider the impact of that stimulus on our burgeoning national debt as well. And then there's a cry with these plans to reopen to save the small businesses. We've seen such terrible impacts on them that the government also has to consider them. So cost benefit analysis is certainly something that is used daily in making those decisions. And that is one of the things that we're going to look at tonight. So for my sweethearts that are on the Nearpod, I believe you should be able to click on that. Yes? Somebody just give me a little indication. Okay, it looks like y'all are. And then for those of you who are not able to join, totally fine. I am going to post the link to this first document in the chat box for you. Maybe. Okay, yes. So here is the link to the first document. And this document is kind of like a master document, so to speak. So I'll show you what it entails. Inside here, you guys will find some instructions for completing the emoji ratings for states' COVID-19 responses. So for each of the indicators that are listed here, there are some websites for you guys to follow. Okay, so this is just like for your information right now. Okay, just for your information. So going back.
I'm sorry, Amanda, I'm on Nearpod, but I'm not able to pull it up from Nearpod.
You're not? Okay. So if you're not able to pull it up from Nearpod, no problem. Run into the chat box and yeah, click on this link. And then on the Nearpod, I think you should be able to click the link. But if it doesn't work, no worries. We are teachers and we know how to monitor and adjust. No worries. All right, so this is handout number 1. We'll come back to this in just a few minutes, but it has all of the links that you'll use in order to complete the activity for tonight. Apparently my doggy wants to participate as well. So what we'll do tonight is I'm going to send you guys out into breakout rooms in just a few minutes so that you guys can compile some information. It was a little fussy. I'm sorry. Yeah, I feel like that happens sometimes with Nearpod. That's why I'm glad we have a chat box too, because sometimes it's just easier to drop that link. So I'm going to model for you guys what I'm looking for. Okay, so we are looking at the impact of states and their responses and kind of mitigating this terrible impact of COVID-19, right? Both for the health, safety, and economic recovery of the state. So I've selected South Carolina. This one's easy for us, right? And we found that South Carolina has a state open status score of 7. Now, where did I find that? Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my handout 1, the one that I just posted in the chat. And this first website is actually pretty darn cool, okay? And y'all will see like what a nerd I am, I guess, but I feel like I may be in good company, hopefully. So this is a snapshot of different states, okay? And if you will scroll down, or you can look on my screen, this snapshot measures several different ways that really compare states' openness scores. So they look at their social distancing guidelines, their restaurant capacity, are bars open until when, are gyms open, school reopening, etc. And I love a good map. So you have a nice map here that kind of shows you states' reopening status, with the darkest being the most open. And then this is really what I like. This website lists details for each state and gives an open status. Okay, so just looking, sorry for the scroll, but y'all will be able to look at this on your own as well. Just kind of scrolling down and looking at South Carolina all the way at the bottom. South Carolina, when I wrote this in December, was actually open status 6. So there are lots of things that have changed since then, like restaurants at capacity, bars opening. This is one of the ones that just changed. Social distancing, gatherings, and meeting restrictions. Not really a huge thing anymore, even though we do certainly see that we are doing it still. Face mask requirement, yes, but that is really up to the local governments. I think that McMaster has suspended the requirement for face coverings in government facilities. So you guys, no matter which state you get, you'll have an openness score, and there will be details about why this state was assigned that openness score from those different reopening actions. Okay, so a lot of that information I got from that website. So mask requirements, school reopening status, and this has changed some since this was created. But as Vicki said earlier, they have been in school since August, face-to-face. Many people are hybrid, but I don't think we have very many that are still just online. And then scrolling back to our master document, we can also view the Bureau of Labor Statistics, really cool website to introduce our students to, and check out the unemployment statistics for states in 3 different checkpoints. So you guys will notice March 2020, the unemployment rate in South Carolina is 3.2%. Then April, man, we went up to 12.8%. The last one, just to show you guys, the last measured one from the Bureau of Labor Statistics here for South Carolina shows 5.6%. And you guys can just click on the historical data to find other points as well. So we are teaching our students not only to find data, but use that data to inform their opinions. So that's what we do here. And then the percent change in real GDP by state. This is actually kind of crazy. The GDP from Q1 to Q2 in 2020 changed by negative 32.6%. Wow, crazy. So how did I find those statistics? I actually compiled that data in an appendix that you guys will see below. We were asked to do this so that if the data goes away, we still have it for the lesson. So it is kind of neatly put in a chart for you guys. And then projected decline in state revenues in 2021. You can also see that here. There's a map that says it. Okay, and then scrolling up, percentage declines in real GDP. You can see the appendix below, but you can also click on the link. So everything is hyperlinked for you and your students to try to make it easy for you. And then last but not least, what's happening with COVID cases? We see, like in South Carolina now, this is one of the ones that I proudly changed before this presentation to decreasing, right? So as we work together to compile these data points for the particular states that I'll share with you guys, I want y'all to be thinking about, if I were to assign a state a couple of emojis, tonight we'll just do 2 or 3, okay? In this lesson, it's a 60-minute lesson for students where they dig a little bit more deeply. So I would ask them to do 4. But here's what I would come up with for South Carolina. Okay, so I would do the down arrow to show that there was an initial dip in unemployment, but eventually that has changed, right? A down arrow to show the downward trend in COVID cases. And then I have like a bomb here for the decline in state revenues and the lack of mask ordinances and renewals in places, and the rise in COVID cases for a while, and hospital bed utilization was a ticking time bomb. And then the last one that I listed here, I love this monkey face with the eyes covered. That's a cool emoji that I like. States are kind of going into this blind because South Carolina, just as much as every other state, like this is the first time we've really seen this situation in our lifetimes. So we're just kind of experimenting and saying, man, I hope this works, right? So as you guys are thinking about this, for some of us, emojis are things that we use and we type, in our text to our friends or on Instagram or whatever. every day. But for some of us, this may be like a foreign concept, right? For your students, it is not a foreign concept. They speak emoji. So as we're thinking about this activity, I want you guys to be brainstorming of how you can use emojis and give your state an emoji rating. So here is, I'll show you guys, y'all let me know, just make sure y'all can you guys see the emojis that I have up here? My pop-up. Okay, cool. Yes. Okay, so I have just like an extension on my computer. I downloaded it from the Google Chrome store. It was, obviously free. So these are some of the ones that I regularly use, and you can just copy those to your clipboard and paste them. Super easy. It's nothing crazy. So that's pretty simple. All right. So y'all go ahead, and if you're in the Nearpod, click on the activity for emoji ratings. Okay. This is, I've given you guys two options. So in this option, you can use the Word document to record your information. Use it side by side with handout 1, which is the handout with all of the hyperlinks. Okay, or, sorry. Donna, I will send you guys the Chrome extension. I sure will. Sure will. I'll put that in the chat box. Okay, so in our breakout rooms tonight, what are we gonna do? We are going to investigate 6 different states tonight. And I tried to choose different geographic areas. I'll post the links in the chat box as well for y'all. I tried to choose different geographic areas so that you guys could kind of see some trends for geography and different politics and whatnot. So in your breakout rooms, what I want you guys to do is quickly work together to compile the data, okay, using handout 1. Okay, I'm gonna post handout 1 more time in the chat box for you. Okay, and this has all of the hyperlinks on it. As we go into our breakout rooms for tonight, okay, I'll flip back in just a second. I want you guys, I thought I had a, give me 1 second. Okay. I'm gonna give you guys a spreadsheet that makes this easy. So everybody will be able to edit this spreadsheet. I love a good Google Doc, guys. So you guys in your groups, in your breakout rooms, can simply go to this document that I pasted below and use that spreadsheet so that everybody can be on the same document. Okay, so as a reminder, if you guys are in breakout room 1, you'll do Arizona. Breakout room 2, you'll do California. Breakout room 3, you'll do Connecticut. For Iowa, 5, Mississippi, and our neighbor for number 6, North Carolina. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and open our rooms, and what I'd like for us to do is take about 7 to 8 minutes, okay, 7 to 8 minutes tops, and complete your information in the spreadsheet that I linked in the chat box. Okay, everybody should be able to edit it. Let me know if there are any issues. And then try your best to come up with a couple of emojis, give your state an emoji rating for how they have handled managing the health, safety, and economic recovery of their citizens. So I have opened your breakout rooms. I'll go ahead and join. I will post the links again in the chat box. It looks like I hope everyone back. I am not sure if you guys were able to see the chat that I just put, but here is a good emoji extension. If you're a Google Chrome user, I'm self-professed obsessed with like Google apps. So anything that Google puts out, I try. So I really do like this one. The kiddos like it, and we use Chromebooks, so this works with their Chromebooks. But I do know in listening to some of your conversations that some of your districts have have tougher, I guess, restrictions than we do. So it's always interesting to hear about the things that everyone blocks. So if that works for you, cool. If not, I'm sure the kids the kids know something before we do. So Juliana, thanks for giving a good shout out to group number 2. Let's look and see what we have so far. Yeah, you guys did a great job. So let me make sure everything is being shared. All right, so if you guys are looking at the spreadsheet, trying to get back to screen share, but it's not being very nice to me. Okay, here we go. So if you guys are looking at the spreadsheet, it looks like I heard a lot of conversation about, you know, lots of states are experiencing the same things. So y'all just take a minute and look over some of the data. Some of the data was not reported. Okay. So group number 2, it looks like you guys had what, California? Is that right? Juliana, you gave a shout out. So let's hear what you guys did and why y'all chose what you did for the emoji.
So I was trying to get those in there, but I'm not entirely sure if I did. I put in one with just the emoji with the mask on because they did have state mask requirements. And then they currently have a downward trend for their COVID cases. So I did the downward graph trend. Then I was just looking to do a little walking man, but with like a circle with the line through it that says like don't walk, because they're still fairly closed. They have a 4.5 closed rating. So I was gonna say that was like, oh, you still can't go outside type situation.
Yeah. So it looks like out of all of these, they're probably, this is Connecticut. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry, we're 5, not 4.5.
California. Okay, yeah, y'all are pretty close, which is probably not surprising, right? So it looks like you guys were able to use your Google document. You shared things. If we had time tonight, I really wanted to allow all of you to share, but I think you can kind of get the gist by looking at the shared document or my screen so y'all can see what other people were thinking. And obviously, if you had just a little bit more time, your students could think a little bit harder about, you know, providing a few more emojis, and hopefully that stretched your brain, made you think in a different way. And for teachers, I think it makes us think like in the minds of students as well, which is important in building relationships. So hopefully that was fun. I have used the emoji activity a couple of times in different lessons in my class, and my students really enjoy it. So use it however you guys see fit. So thank y'all for sharing. Thank you, Juliana, for letting me kind of call you out. Everybody loves a good cold call, right? So where can you find these resources? All right, so number 1, these resources are linked on Econ EdLink and the link that I have shared in the Nearpod with you. And then also, if you want me to post that in the chat, I'm gonna come at you with just a few resources. So I'll put those all in the chat for you. All right, so these are the lessons. Oh yes, I will make sure that I send you guys all of this information in a follow-up email as well. But you know, for those of you who might not sleep, here is the information. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'd like to begin. If you guys are on Nearpod, you can go ahead and click this evaluation link. Like I told you guys earlier, there are 2 little short evaluations that I'm going to send your way. This first one is from our funder, and so they get like a separate evaluation form than we do, so we don't get theirs. This is just for them to understand if you could use the resources. Feel free to be brutally honest on both of these. So I'll send that one out. And while I'm sending that out and you guys are doing it, I just want you guys to know how much I've enjoyed hanging out with you tonight. I love talking all things econ, personal finance, and I've really enjoyed understanding fiscal responsibility, like diving more into how the economy has been impacted by COVID.